Welcome back to the deep dive. And before we even get started today, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure your notifications are on. You are really going to want to hear this one.
Yeah, definitely. We are stepping into some incredibly intense territory today.
We really are. We're looking at an ebook today that is, well, it doesn't even call itself a book. It calls itself a battle plan, an arsenal.
Right. It's called Democrazy, Feminist Devastation Through Women Majority Suffrage Killing Western Civilization by Conrad Riker.
Yeah, and look, our mission today is to unpack exactly what Riker is arguing here. We're going to look at the history of our institutions, how they operated before what he describes as their capture by feminists and Marxists.
And we really need to set the stage for how we're approaching this. We are looking at this source material objectively. We are breaking down the author's arguments, the data he uses, and the worldview he's presenting.
Exactly. We're laying out what the book says, and the book is speaking directly to a very specific audience. Like, if you are a guy listening right now, he asks some pretty heavy rhetorical questions right in the intro.
He does. He asks, do you feel like a wallet instead of a father?
Yeah.
Do you feel like your natural masculinity is being pathologized? Like it's a disease?
Right. And if you're nodding your head to that, Riker's argument is that you need to go to Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books right now and get this book. Seriously, open a new tab and look it up.
He's very upfront that this is a red pill reality check. He says right in the preface that if you are easily offended, if you are what he calls a blue-haired activist, this is not for you.
Yeah, he actually says go knit a uterus-shaped pillow.
Right, exactly. He says this is for rational men who refuse to kneel, men who are looking at the state of the West and seeing it crumble.
And the root cause he points to is this concept of gynocracy, a society run by and for women. We're going to be mentioning the author Conrad Riker quite a bit today. You should definitely check out his Substack at Conrad Riker. He's also on Twitter and YouTube building a whole community around this.
So let's jump into the first major section. Riker calls this the suicide of the West, and he backs this up with some pretty stark CDC data.
Yeah, this part was, it's grim. We talk about the mental health crisis all the time in the media, but he points to the CDC data showing men commit suicide at 3.88 times the rate of women, almost 4 times the rate.
Almost 4 times. And Riker's analysis here is that this is civilizational seppuku. He draws a direct correlation between women gaining majority voting power and this massive spike in male misery.
Because the priority shifted, right?
Exactly. He argues the priority shifted from infrastructure and building to comfort and what he sees as emotional appeasement. And he talks about the media bias surrounding this.
Oh, the CNN comparison?
Right. He notes you might see 247 segments on CNN about abortion or women's issues, but you'll maybe see 1 segment on male suicide.
1 segment. It's just wild to think about that disparity. And he explains why that happens using this idea of the gynocratic loop, the double bind.
This is a really central concept in the book. The double bind is this idea that society demands male utility. It demands provision. But at the same time, it demonizes the very traits that make that provision possible.
Right, so if you're strong, you're toxic.
Yeah. But if you show vulnerability, you're mocked as weak. He uses the reaction to Robin Williams' death as an example.
Oh, right.
Society consumed his pain as comedy when he was alive, but if a regular guy at work shows that kind of vulnerability, HR isn't going to support him. Riker argues he'll just be seen as a liability.
There's that story he tells about the Detroit factory worker. I think it perfectly illustrates the toxic masculinity scam he's talking about.
The guy hustling for overtime.
Yeah, so this guy in Detroit is working hard, asking for more shifts to provide for his family, and he gets called too aggressive by management for pushing for those hours. But if he says, you know what, I need to focus on my mental health, I'm not working the weekend,
then he's lazy. He's failing his family.
Exactly. Riker points out that society just demands male utility, but totally despises male nature. Natural male energy is just pathologized across the board.
Which leads us right into chapter 2, which Riker calls the divorce gulag. And this is where the financial castration aspect comes into play.
The legal plunder. The numbers here are just, they're terrifying if you're a guy thinking about getting married. He pulls data from the UK Ministry of Justice.
Right. Showing that men lose 75% of their assets in 80% of contested divorces.
75%.
And 97% of alimony payers are men. Riker uses these stats to argue that marriage today is not a partnership. He literally defines it as state-sanctioned plunder and fiscal cuckoldry.
Fiscal cuckoldry, that is quite the phrase. And he backs it up with the story about Dave the contractor.
The plumber who built the McMansion.
Right. So Dave works 80-hour weeks, destroys his body to build this huge house for his family. And then the divorce happens. And where is Dave living now?
In a studio apartment eating ramen.
Eating ramen. While his ex-wife's new boyfriend, the yoga instructor, is living in the house Dave built.
Riker calls this the beta tax in Chapter 10. It's this idea of alimony as indentured servitude. He gives another example. Bruce, the software engineer.
Yeah, Bruce paying the massive alimony.
$4,500 a month.
To a woman with 2 Ivy League degrees.
Right, because she supposedly sacrificed her career potential to find herself. Riker points out the intense paradox here. We live in an era that constantly preaches equality and strong, independent women.
Right, but then they require lifetime subsidies from their ex-husbands. It's a complete contradiction, according to the author.
And it gets even darker when he gets into paternity fraud. The burden basket.
This was the part that honestly blew my mind. The Ohio father.
Right. He was actually jailed for non-payment of child support.
Even though he had DNA tests. 3 of them, wasn't it?
3 separate DNA tests proving the child was not his. But he was still jailed.
How does that even happen legally? Riker explains the legal reality is just totally rigged.
He points out that 30 states actually block victims of paternity fraud from suing to get their money back. The principle of the court is basically, you're on the birth certificate, so pay up or rot in a cell.
It's just unbelievable. And Riker argues this is biological treason, which takes us into Section 3. Looking at the dating market through this lens of evolutionary psychology.
Yeah, he cites David Buss's research here, looking at hypergamy and the swipe data on modern dating apps.
The swipe data is brutal. He says 87% of women on apps swipe right on only the top 13% of men.
Which means 80% of men are rated below average by women on these platforms. Mathematically, that makes no sense, but it shows the perception gap. Riker calls this cakeism.
Cakeism. Because they want to have their cake and eat it too.
Exactly. Women want traditional providers, the top-tier guys, the venture capitalists, but they also want to preach entirely non-traditional roles.
He brings up Dave again here. Just an average guy at a bar, he gets completely ignored. But his coworker, Riker, describes her as having blue hair. She's getting free drinks all night.
Right, the dating market is completely skewed. And Riker ties this back to biology in chapters 5 and 21. He calls it testosterone treason.
Because men are biologically hardwired for risk and leadership.
Yes, he looks at historical context, Rome, other great civilizations. Riker argues they thrived under male leadership, and the decline always begins when men are forced to become docile.
And he talks about the glass cellar. We always hear about the glass ceiling, right? But Riker points out the glass cellar. He notes feminists fight for board seats like the golden skirts in Norway, but they completely ignore the dangerous jobs.
OSHA data shows men comprise 93% of workplace fatalities.
93%.
He brings up the 2022 Texas oil rig explosion. Men literally died doing the dangerous work for a green energy rebranding effort, and the female VP got a bonus.
It really paints a picture of this war on competence, which is Section 4. He calls it classroom castration.
Chapter 3 dives deep into how the education system is fundamentally failing boys. And the mechanism for this, according to the book, is punishing boyhood energy.
With Ritalin.
Yes, doping them up. Riker argues that female teachers actively downgrade male creativity as dangerous. If a boy acts like a boy, he's a problem.
And the outcome is what he calls the school-to-prison pipeline. Fatherless boys are 5 times more likely to be incarcerated because they're failing literacy benchmarks and being told their natural energy is wrong from day one.
And if they do make it to the workforce, they hit the quota coup.
Right. DEI, the death of meritocracy. This is chapter 6 and 17.
He gives some really striking anecdotes here. A United Airlines pilot with a totally perfect record getting sidelined for diversity hires.
Or the NYC firefighters. That one was wild. Lowering the fitness standards for women.
And it led to a 30% spike in injuries because fires don't care about quotas. Riker argues this is essentially corporate suicide.
He cites an Amazon HR study, too. Male warehouse workers are the ones actually breaking bones on the floor, while female corporate leadership just balloons.
It's all part of what he calls legacy theft in Chapter 20, erasing male achievement from history.
The museum examples.
Right. Thomas Edison has over 1,000 patents, but his display is just in some dusty case, while Rosie the Riveter, a propaganda piece, gets a whole wall.
And Smithsonian having Alexander Hamilton depicted knitting.
Yeah, and the Schuyler sisters rapping. Riker argues this is a deliberate rewriting of history to erase the men who actually built Western civilization.
Which leads right into the weaponization of the legal system. Section 5, false allegations and digital guillotines.
Chapters 4 and 8, the complete destruction of due process, the believe all women narrative versus actual FBI stats.
Yeah, he points out the FBI stats on false rape allegations are around 8%. But the culture treats an accusation as an absolute conviction.
He references high-profile cases like the Duke lacrosse team and the UVA fraternity case from Rolling Stone.
The consequence is that just one accusation equals career death. You get a permanent Google stain, and your life is over, even if you're innocent.
And the legal weaponization extends to what he calls reproductive enslavement, chapters 13 and 22.
This involves the loss of bodily autonomy for men, the sperm jacking story. Jonathan Miller.
Right. His ex used his frozen sperm against his will. She got pregnant, and the court forced him to pay child support for twins he never consented to have.
The legal standard, Riker points out here, is just insane. Women have 100% reproductive choice. They can choose abortion, they can choose to keep the kid. Men have 0% choice, but 100% financial liability.
Even with vasectomy failures. He notes courts will still garnish wages when a medical procedure fails. The system is designed to extract resources.
So it's pretty bleak. But Riker doesn't just leave the reader hanging. Section 6 is all about the solutions. He calls it the Phoenix Protocol.
Right. Chapter 7 discusses the marriage strike and MGTOW, men going their own way.
Men are just opting out.
Exactly. The strategy is to simply refuse to marry. Riker says it's the only way to avoid the legalized annihilation of the divorce courts.
And the data shows the MGTOW movements are actually growing, and it's reducing male suicide in those communities because it finally gives men a sense of control over their lives.
And he offers practical tactics too. Digital homesteading in Chapter 23. Building a parallel economy.
Using offshore LLCs, cryptocurrency.
Blockchain enforced contracts. He says you need to protect your assets from the matriarchy. His self-defense advice is literal. Form LLCs before your relationships get serious.
Treat it like a business because the state treats it like a business.
Exactly. And the final piece is reclaiming masculinity, the Phoenix Protocol itself in Chapter 24.
He wants men to completely reject the victim mindset. Compete, build companies, stop apologizing for strength.
He says the selection process is crucial. Choose partners who actually appreciate strong men, not activists who want to tear you down.
The final thought of the book really stuck with me. The future belongs to those who seize it.
It's a powerful summary of his mission. Riker's book is designed to be a lifeline, a blueprint for surviving a gynocratic world.
He makes it abundantly clear that the system is rigged against you, and this book is your defense.
So we're giving you the hard sell here, because that's what the source material demands.
Stop whatever you are doing right now. Go to Amazon, Kindle, or Google Play Books immediately and buy Democrazy, Feminist Devastation Through Women Majority Suffrage Killing Western Civilization.
Read it, absorb it, and then leave a 5-star review. Riker says we need to flood the algorithms with truth.
And make sure you follow Conrad Riker on Substack, Twitter, and YouTube to join the resistance.
As he signs off, don't kneel. Stand. Lead.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you next time.